Across the country, kids are getting ready to say goodbye to summer and hello to a fresh school year. In fact, some have already started. This is a time of new friends, new classrooms, new routines, but for some students, it can mean new health problems. When most people think about stress and anxiety, they think of adults juggling family and career. But according to a recent study, approximately 6% of children and youth have a serious anxiety disorder, which left untreated can lead to lifelong problems. A group of American pediatricians came out this week with one possible reason: sleep, saying 87% of high school students aren't getting enough. Canadian studies have delivered similar results. The group says lack of sleep can lead to health and mental health problems. In Ontario, a survey found 1 in 5 kids has a mental health problem. And consider this: nationally, for those 15 to 24 years old, suicide accounts for 24% of all deaths. Some sobering numbers there. So to talk about what students face in September, Dr. Danielle Martin of Women's College Hospital, Janine Robb, Executive Director of Health and Wellness at the University of Toronto, and Dr. Kwam McKenzie, who is the Medical Director of Children, Youth and Adolescent Services at the Centre for Addictions and Mental Health here in Toronto. And Kwam, let's begin with you and talk about suicide, particularly for university-age students, many of them going away from home for the first time in the next few days. Without overreacting, what should parents and friends look for?
Well, just a few more statistics. 7% of university students will think about maybe hurting themselves over the time when they're in university, and 1% will actually try to do it. So it's actually a very important problem. But suicide is part of a process. If you can catch the symptoms of mental health problems or the symptoms of stress early on, you can usually stop that process leading to suicidal thoughts and acts. And so that's one of the things that parents can try and do.
You know, Janine, it's interesting. So often, and in news coverage and public discussion, people look at the triggering moment and they think, boy, that was the moment where people should have intervened. But earlier than that, what should we be doing?
Well, there are usually signs and symptoms. And I think if we're talking about university students, I think one of the things is not all university students are suicidal. But changes in behaviors, so withdrawal, less contact, not attending classes, staying in their dorm room, not coming out. These are the kinds of behaviors we need to attend to. One of the things parents should do is have a regular check-in so that if there is a point in time where the phone's not picked up for a few times, that might make you be a little bit more concerned about what might be going on with the student.
There's been so much public discussion, Danielle, about suicide. It's kind of a taboo topic in a lot of ways, but in your practice, do you see more awareness of it from patients and from their parents?
I think there is more awareness, and that's generally a good thing. I think what's tough for parents to sort out, and appropriately so, is that it's hard to know where does the normal stress and anxiety around an important life transition end and a real mental illness begin. And sometimes there's a gray zone in there that's very difficult for friends and family to sort out. I mean, it's appropriate when you're making a big life transition like that to have moments of stress or anxiety or uncertainty or negativity, but those moments shouldn't become disabling, you know, and that's, I think, really the true ultimate test is the student able to function in his or her life socially with family, friends, and at school?
And so, Janine, if you feel like that is happening to a kid or a sibling or a friend, how do you begin intervening?
Well, I think anybody who's aware of what's going on with an individual should actually have a discussion and say, you know, I've noticed these changes in your behavior. You're not going to class like you used to. You're not handing in your assignments. To try and identify that there is obviously something changing. And at that point, encourage them to speak to their family doctor, go to the counseling services at the university. There is lots of phone lines that they can call to Good to Talk to a counselor and get some feedback as to what might the next steps be.
Kwam, that statistic that you talked about at the beginning, where it was 7% of university-age kids try to hurt themselves, what's going on there?
Well, I think that one of the things, before we get to that, we'll probably just dial back a bit. There are things that sometimes mental health problems come out of nowhere, but often mental health problems happen at times that are predictable. And moving from home to university is a predictable time of stress. And you can do stuff about that. Forewarned is forearmed. You can learn how to cook a meal. You can learn how to wash your clothes, though maybe you might not want to, but you can learn how to do it. You can learn and you can get help with budgeting. But you can also, as parents, talk about balance, because actually a healthy mind is linked to a healthy body. Yeah, you do have to go to the gym. Yes, it's actually useful to eat properly. And investing in your social networks, so your support networks at university, are really important. They're in some ways, they're as important as some of the grades you get going forward. And yeah, keeping contact with mum and dad isn't such a bad idea because there's a support network at home.
I wonder if people listening to that might find it not correctly, but might find it a bit simplistic, that knowing how to wash your clothes and prepare meals is somehow going to ward off mental health. What do you say to someone who might be a little skeptical about that?
Well, I think that's actually a reality that we see on campuses, as students arrive without a skill set to help support their transition to sort of being on their own. I've had students who've said, I don't know how to shop, I don't know how to budget, I don't know how to do my clothes, and we've had to actually at times run workshops on how to do these things away from home. So parents should be trying to arm their kids with these kinds of skill sets.
I lived at home for my undergrad, so I hope my parents aren't chuckling at home. Danielle, let's look at younger kids now, because it is the start of the school year, obviously, for all grades. And the issue of stress. I mean, stress is going to be part of life, and I know parents can tend to be overprotective. How should we balance how much stress we, allow our kids to be subject to, and how we, at what point we intervene or try to dial it back?
Well, as you've said, it is a balance, right? Of course, we, as parents, we all want to protect our kids from stress, but actually helping kids to develop good coping mechanisms for dealing with stress is one of the most important things that we can do as parents. So, of course, you don't want to be, running your 5-year-old through times tables drills unnecessarily.
Oh, no?
Probably not. But at the same time, you do want to take those moments that can be anxiety-provoking and stressful and talk them through with your kid. Have that conversation. And if you feel ill-equipped to do it, have it with your family doctor in his or her office about how do we deal with moments where we feel scared? How do we approach new things that we don't know how to do? Where do we take our courage from? Where do we take our strength from? When do we say, I'm not comfortable, I don't want to do that, or whatever, and help kids to actually develop that skill set of tools for dealing with those anxiety-provoking moments. Simply protecting them from the stress entirely or trying to take it all off their plates may not actually be the best thing for them in the long run.
And Kwam, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, there's something called the stress performance curve. So the more stress you get, the better your performance. And it goes up, more stress, better performance. Then it tails off. Your performance doesn't improve with any more stress.
And the curve must be different for different kids.
Yeah, but then you get to a point where more stress and your performance goes right down. Mm-hmm. So just like Daniel was saying earlier, it's when the stress is so much that you can't perform at school, you can't perform at home, and you can't perform socially, that you know that there's a problem and there's too much stress. And then you've got to do the difficult thing of trying to get them the skills to deal with stress or to dial back the stress so that they're back on the performance curve and they can actually do what they need to do.
Let's switch topics now. Janine, sleep has gotten a lot of attention over the last few days, and of course it's something that school-age children of all ages deal with. Mm-hmm. From the university perspective, what's the advice?
The advice is get a good night's sleep. Sleep at least 8 hours.
Does anybody sleep 8 hours on campus? I guess some people do, but
they
not a
don't
lot.
Because they think they should be studying 24/7.
I think that's what's happening, yeah.
Is in fact counterproductive. So having a good night's sleep means your memory works better, your learning works better, you're less irritable and moody. It gives your body a chance to reset. It's the same thing with kids. Kids need to have a routine. They need to know when bedtime is. They need to have that wind down time in order that they can easily fall asleep. They have to get the sleep so that they can learn and function.
So I have 2 kids, university age, but all through their growing up, night and day, I guess, in terms of sleep. One hated sleep, resisted it from the time he was a baby. The other one loves to sleep as much as he can. You must see this in your practice. The advice, sure, you need lots of sleep. How do you deal with that kid who can't sleep or resists sleep or tosses and turns?
Well, there are lots of different strategies. And of course, as you've identified, every kid is different. So, there's no blanket approach. But I do think it's important for parents to recognize that, especially in young kids, a chronic lack of sleep can actually lead to all kinds of other forms of physical and mental health problems. And so, in fact, we're now beginning to learn that many kids have been overdiagnosed or misdiagnosed with learning disabilities and mental mental health issues who are in fact basically just chronically tired. So whatever the routine is that works for your child, whether it's an extended wind down period or starting the day a little bit later than you might otherwise hope for, having that consistency of routine is really crucial for young children. And we'd all, as parents, love to sleep in on the weekends, but actually getting the routine thrown off every Saturday and Sunday just makes Monday morning harder. So that consistency of routine is really critical.
So let's finish with this. This is a time of great optimism, but maybe a time of great anxiety for the students and for their families, and maybe some last words of wisdom as we get ready to pack the kids up or take them to school. And Janine, let's start with you.
Eat, sleep, make friends. Having a social network will really take you a long way to having a very good experience. It's not all about the books. It's about all the other life skills that you're going to learn and experience, and you never know what you're going to look like on the other side.
Quan?
It's all about balance. Have fun, balance things out, do the studying, but as Janine says, make sure that you look after yourself, you build your social networks, and you enjoy the experience. It's only going to get harder from there.
Oh, I thought you were giving this good, optimistic message, but it's only going to get harder from there. Danielle?
To me, I think the most important message is that some amount of stress is normal and is good. So those transitional moments, whether it's the first time you drop your kid at daycare or the day that you bring them to college or university for the first time, are appropriate moments for a person to be anxious, afraid, stressed out to some degree. And we need to embrace that and help people to find ways to walk into that as opposed to trying to shield them from it entirely.
And we all got through it, and I think we all liked it.
More or less.
Not every minute, but generally.
It's the most fabulous time of your life, and you've just got to enjoy it and balance it out.
Okay, thank you very much to all three of you.